Throughout this video, I will be referring to my composition Parallax Error, composed in 2014 for any 4-string bowed instrument with a bridge. By physically playing the viola, having had no training in it, I was effectively experimenting with an unfamiliar situation that in turn affected my musical notation, and I'm more comfortable with the piano. My viola playing technique involved a separation of right and left hands, just naturally. And this is reflected in Parallax Error's notation, which has separate staffs for the right and left hands, much like traditional piano music notation. Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to talk about how we can compose with restrictions in order to subvert our own ingrained compositional technique. Why am I doing this? Because by doing this, hopefully, we can compose something that we wouldn't have done otherwise. Right. Sorry, I was laughing proper loads yesterday. The reason is irrelevant, you wouldn't find it funny, but I feel like I've got a bit of a... Now for a brief interlude before we move on to exploring the sonority of this piece, like pitch and duration, to discuss why I picked the term Parallax Error as the title of this piece. And I'm going to talk about it because I think it's relevant to my overall point in this lecture, online video. Now, a parallax error is an error based on viewing an artifact from a different perspective, which produces an error in the interpretation of the artifact. So a common example is reading a test tube measurement from a different angle and interpreting an incorrect reading. So if you think about it, if you have a test tube and you have the liquid up to a certain point, if you look above it, it looks like it's moved away from the marker, and if you look below it, it's different. You have to be exactly level. In other words, the reading, whether accurate or an error, is based solely on the interpreter's perspective. Parallax errors are also used in animation, I think, to have a difference between the horizon or something in the distance moving at a slower speed from something up close. These cows are small, but those cows are far away. And the notation of Parallax Error, my piece, resonates with my overall viewpoint that interpretation of a composition is based on the interpreter's perspective, which in turn is guided by preconceived ideas about what they are interpreting. And this applies to both the performer of Parallax Error, whether it's me or someone else, and also the listener. Also, Parallax Error's decoupled hands in the notation, and also in the performing of it, can be regarded as a parallax error, both in relation to each other, where the music exists in between the two right and left hands, and in the right and left hand staffs, and in relation to the way this is played and normative viola technique, traditional viola technique. So there are comparisons being made all the time in various avenues, depending on how you look at the piece. Whether you're comparing it to how you should play a viola according to tradition, or in between the two right and left hands, or in between the performer and the battling with the instrument, what they want to play and how the instrument reacts. Parallax Error just seemed like a really apt title. On to sonority now. Exploring an instrument that I was not familiar with also allowed me to rethink what sorts of musical characteristics I was used to employing in my music. And by musical characteristics here I mean pitch, dynamics, articulation, and so on. Basically, this experimental approach allowed me to compose something I would not have done had I just written what I was used to. So how did this approach affect the sort of music I composed? Well, my lack of training on the viola meant that I was not technically confident with performing specific noted pitches. This resulted in me focusing instead on non-normative performance techniques, or extended techniques, unstable sounds, and quasi-improvisatory passages such as the general direction to trail off. See it in line 1 here. Just trail off at the end, however you want. A punto d'arco. also like how you have to just let it react. You can't control it. If you do it right, you have no control over it. As such, pitch and rhythm became byproducts of non-normative instrumental techniques and timbral exploration, which I also attempted to capture in the notation. So the specific pitches and sounds and rhythms were unpredictable and depended on how the instrument reacted. See that rhythm? I don't notate that. That just happened because of the instrumental technique. That specific sound as well. It's not deliberate. Oh, a little bird has replied. So I experimented with sounds that I would not necessarily have discovered had I approached the viola like a violist, like a professional viola player, or using my own preconceived knowledge about how I would compose for the viola. This also reflects the conceptual framework of the Parallax Error. Without the experience of technical training, my reading of the viola is different from that of a trained violist. Now, in order to structure these performance experimentations that I did logically into a finished piece of music, I categorised the sonic results of my experimentations with the viola into what I called sound objects. And I have an example here. Big graph. As you can see, Parallax Error is organised into 11 lines in the score, but should be regarded as one continuous line by the performer. Parallax Error's categorised sound objects are organised according to the following timbral characteristics: percussive, deliberate pitch, albeit unspecific, glissando, resonance, non-normative bowing, collegno, bow or arco bowing, the body, for example, noise, arco normale, and that's pretty much it, I think. And you can see an analysis of Parallax Error's overall structure demonstrated here in this table. I am aware of Pierre Schaeffer's work regarding classifying sounds and the term sound object. However, for the purpose of this commentary, the term sound object is employed merely for ease of reference. It's just a sound object. Literally, it's just this time-space of sound. If you're interested for more information on this aspect of Schaeffer's work, see Pierre Schaeffer, In Search of Concrete Music, translated by Christine North and John Dack. Moreover, there are other composers who consider the characteristics of sound in this way. For example, see Angstar Beste, The Well-Tempered Instrumentation, investigating selected compositional concepts for instrumental noise music based on extended playing techniques. Okay, so then from a collection of these categorised sound objects, I built the piece's musical form. Now, how did I structure these sounds then across the piece? Well, the structure of Parallax Error is in part intuitive and in part influenced by my capability to perform the instrumental techniques employed. So for example, in line 6 here, it's practical for me, having no viola training, to follow the glissando with the direction to dampen the strings, because the glissando technique leads comfortably into the following dampening technique. I'll demonstrate. And to be fair, I think all performers will find this easier. It's not necessarily that I'm just incapable. I think, not to say that a more skilled performer wouldn't be able to do something way more acrobatic and virtuosic. So as we have the glissando, dampen. How did I actually write this? So it goes... Then we dampen. And then we have slide collegno bow up and down. Okay. Oh, there's a pause, and then you can go back to the beginning. recording of this out there. I'll just add, no, that the lines are numbered for clarity, and the line numbers are bracketed because the overall music should be regarded as one continuous line by the performer. Okay, as I keep saying, by being heavily influenced by my lack of experience playing a viola traditionally, I am not saying that I would not have composed such music for a trained violist. Rather, this was an influential factor during this particular compositional process at the time. The unfamiliarity that I experienced when experimenting on the viola allowed me to view the composition as an arrangement of sound objects, structured into a piece of music according to my own capabilities. I was composing music that I would not have done had I taken a more familiar compositional approach. However, as we've explored, Parallax Error's musical characteristics are not unique amidst avant garde practice in general, avant garde with capital letters. For instance, similarities can be drawn between this piece's tonal exploration and some of Lachenmann's work, in particular Pression for solo cello. See Helmut Lachenmann's Pression für einen Cellisten, Wiesbaden, Breitkopf und Hertel. I don't know. A recording can be found here. Lachenmann Allegro sostenuto Pression interior 3 and blah 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 blah. Have a look, Google it. We all know how to do this. This similarity to Lachenmann's Pression is unintentional. And like Parallax Error's notation, it demonstrates how, despite attempting to explore something unfamiliar and step away from my own preconceived ideas about composing music, I am destined to produce music that adheres to other avant-garde practices. By even saying this, I am suggesting the existence of an avant-garde style that I can adhere to. It also goes some way to support my main point that being new, or avant-garde today, is totally futile. It just flows more naturally if we're looking at letting the cello dictate the sounds. His instrument reacted differently from the viola and the cello, and this seemed to govern whether they let the instrument take over more or whether they fought the instrument more to stay true to what I had intended in the music, which, to be honest, was more of an equal balance between fighting the instrument and letting it do its own thing.